2019 Lexus NX200T, or rather a victim of car maintenance neglect. This beautiful car had 66,000 miles. It comes to the shop with a very interesting problem at a very early age. It is burning so much oil, and it's making all kinds of engine knocking and everything. Let's start the video, talk about it, and we're actually going to fix it in this video as well. So here is the story of this Lexus. This is an 8AR FTS engine. It's a 2-liter. It's a turbocharged engine. Pretty low-key engine. It's going to have live issues. Yes, it is turbocharged, so maintenance is very important, right? Except we have reason to believe that the original owner of this beautiful 200T did not change the oil in this engine since the car was new until 46,000 miles. And then they started, of course, having problems with the turbo and oil burning. Brought it to a dealership. The dealership told me you need a new turbo and your warranty's void, by the way. And what did they do after that? Did they fix the car? Actually, they just drove it as it is for a while, and then they just traded it. Didn't say nothing here. Just traded it in. Let's move on. And then the current owner of the car just bought the car. And they bought it as is. They're buying extended warranty. I mean, it's a Lexus, right? Well, this car burns so much oil, and the engine sounds like this. I hope it is clear in the video that that engine does not sound healthy at all. And we already looked at this car, but I want to show you what we actually found. How does it look from the outside? Because there's a very important thing about car diagnosis before we look into an engine. You have to find the what's wrong. But the more important than that is the why. Because if you don't find the why, we could fix this engine or put another engine here, and we could be arriving at the exact same thing shortly after if we don't know the why. Now, in the particular case of this engine, the why is you might have neglected that oil change a little way too much. 46,000 miles documented. So actually diagnosing this car is very interesting because I know what the damage is. I'm going to show you here in a second. But the why, we had to dig into paperwork and service history and kind of reading the dealership notes across when the car came in for the first time. Let us first show you the extent of the damage on this engine, which is just sad. Folks, take care of your cars. I'd rather do an oil change on this than change an engine 66,000 miles. That's kind of sad. Let us pull the spark plugs. We'll do a bore scope. Actually, after that, we're going to pull this engine out of this car, tear it down, show you the extent of the damage of what happens when you take a really good engine and neglect it. And then we're going to put a used engine in this car. We'll talk about it throughout, get it running, and get it back to the customer. So when we got this car, I was kind of skeptical about what exactly is going on in this car. Like, it's way too early for oil burning and everything. But I did not anticipate the surprise that we were going to find with this car. Let's pull the spark plugs. We'll take a look. Take a look at some of the carnage here, because it doesn't look pretty, I'll tell you that much. And I wanted you to see it. I want you to see this plug. This is not an original plug on this car. It's an NGK, and it's a little too dark for a plug that potentially just got replaced. Let's remove the rest of them. This one is the same thing. This one is probably the worst one. Oh, God help us all. That does not look like a plug from a 60,000 mile car. 66,000. This is the porcelain. How it's broken. Completely broken. I even wonder if these plugs are counterfeit. Who knows? Let's look inside the engine. We'll see. So we pulled the ugly duckling spark plug out of cylinder number 4. I'll put the input from this camera just for you to see what things look like. So here's the piston. You notice that slight wash on this side, a little bit more on the other side. I'll point it with an arrow. You see that? This engine's burning oil. How much? That's a different question. But I'd like you to look at the cylinder wall. First, let's for reference establish that this is somewhat, it has scratches, but you can see the crosshatch through it. Now, when we turn the camera and you see this, that is complete destruction. You see that? This, one of these days, used to look like this. That is unbelievable what happened here. I mean, even with this much neglect, it doesn't look terrible, actually. 46,000 miles without an oil change for new, mind you. And this cylinder's completely gone. Now, this is the important part of this. We figured out what happened. We have cylinder wall damage, of course. This is going to just, nothing will seal, we'll have low compression. But in addition to that, we do have knocking noises from the engine. I suspect actually the turbo is making some of these knocking noises, so we won't know until we tear it apart and kind of be able to access the impeller and see if we have movement or not. The biggest thing is the why, and the why. You couldn't figure it out from the car. I mean, even taking the oil cap, you look, I mean, it's really impossible to tell. There's a little bit of moisture here on the cap. This moisture is not a huge deal, but I noticed this. You have definite sludge on the edge here. I hope you can see it clearly. This is way too early for this engine to have this much at the top, and we literally just drove it from the other side of the building to here. It's not even warmed up, and it's already has blow light. Bottom line is, long story short, this motor is done. There's nothing you can do for that cylinder wall, and by the time we actually already looked at this car and discussed it with the customer, options are we either get a new short block, but then that knocking noise is kind of concerning, because I don't know if, unless we take it apart and tear it down to see, do we have cam damage, do we have lifter damage, is it a VTI engine, do we have gear damage, do we have chain damage? I mean, this could just end up being a whole engine replacement. Because these cars are newer and they're not really known for problems, a used engine is actually not an expensive proposition. And that's where we're actually going to end up going here. We took our time, we kind of selected an engine, actually got an engine with super low miles, and I really like it. It seems very healthy. We looked inside of it, looked around it. I like it. We researched the service history on that engine, and we also got a used turbo, because the turbo on these, yeah, it's not cheap from Lexus, and they don't have a lot of issues. If you neglect them or have just extreme high miles, yes, but normally they're fine. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put these spark plugs off camera just so we can drive the car. I'll push it. Let's put this engine out. Extend the damage. Because right now I know this is not salvageable. I see this all over. shop and deeming actual engine problems. And I think I know 100,000 miles was an older car. And at that point, the owner was like, well, I really got my use out of this car. They moved on. It was burning oil one time. It was just bad maintenance. But the Lexus NX, its first generation, really came with two models. It was 200D, just like this one. And then there was the 300H, or hybrid model, minus 700 engine, too. I4 hybrid, Camry hybrid of that generation. We had a 2.8 engine, a 2.5. Pretty decent engine, we take care of it. But this particular engine is a very special engine. See, this engine came from 2015 to 21 in the NX. Came in a few other models, but in the NX, Lexus did something very interesting. I think it was an experimental model. So Lexus NX is heavily based on the RAV4 platform. It is basically a RAV4. So from 2015 to 2017, it was called an NX 200T, indicating that's a turbo 100D, a 2-liter engine. Then 2018 to 21, they changed to NX 300 because they felt like that sounded a lot better. Now, full disclaimer on this engine. I have not exactly been inside one of these engines because they are pretty reliable. You don't have much vehicle requirement as they are things we'll talk about here. But being a turbo engine, they don't have a lot of issues. Yes, I've seen cases of turbos having issues with a lot of maintenance, but a lot of maintenance, maintain these cars. Things are going to go. The turbo for this car is a very high quality turbo, and I have to say that because this engine has its quirks. It doesn't have actual issues that are known in rapid reading for these are modified, heavily modified engine. I say modified because this is an AR series engine. Same thing as the 1AR and the 2AR, which are decent engines we take care of. We know they don't burn oil, but they don't have much issues. There are generations that can have some issues with maybe the idea around and whatnot, but not really much else. But something about this engine that is very interesting that if you want to you're concerned about it, you're just curious about them. This is a highly experimental engine. And Lexus NX was kind of a surprising generating car that only made in Japan. That was kind of a plus for them. So this engine is kind of a hybrid between the AR series engine, the 24, it is kind of old school, and the modern stuff that you're seeing today. You know, the V35, the 4-zone, the T24, these are the new engines that you're seeing today, 2024, making look everything everybody's really uproar about. Turbo, oh my god, this is the average turbo Lexus reliability. But did you know that this engine was actually the first iteration of that? It was the first Lexus turbo engine that they put in the pretty mainstream level of the extended developments. Everybody felt really about the things that are simple to just being a nice rifle. Here's something about this engine that is very interesting. See, the block design is exactly almost very similar to the 2AR, same construction, same valve, same everything. But the cylinder head is a cylinder head of a modern engine. That's what the application is. See, this is one of the great engines with D4S. And the good D4S. D4S is direct and port injection at the same time. Yes, they have it developed Lexus models. This was the version that's staying. That's still 24. And then the cylinder head, the valve springs are a very unique shape where they're thinner at the top, thicker in the middle. Very similar to like an 825A, which is one of the modern engines. Valve springs, and then you go design the cylinder head. Now it doesn't have laser flat or the dynamic force, but it's a unique shape. So that's the only thing it doesn't have, but it has everything else that the Rangers have. And that was the only thing. It does have a plastic valve cover, which is one of the first ones. Then you have the GR units that have a plastic valve cover as well. Very hard quality and the quality of the was very impressive. So here's the thing about this. This was actually the turbo side of this engine. It is a vacuum controlled wastegate, which is a very old school. It was actually very reliable when you're using vacuum. There's nothing complicated about it, but it actually used the liquid to air intercooler back in 2015. And it was pretty cutting edge, extremely cutting edge. The only problem is that like the variable sits on the intake manifold. And it's all the way in the back. Because of that, they had to move the alternator in such a difficult position. You can almost see the shot. It sits all the way in the back. It's such a difficult position. I think that's they were experimenting with this engine, and I think it was a successful experimentation because they are reliable. Now, talk to me about cleaning it. A lot of money. These are the deals after outright looking at the car to do that. It's very difficult. It's a very tight spot because it sits on the liquid air motor, and there's a little pipe. It's such a tight space behind the engine. It's almost impossible to get to it. Very complicated cooling system because it has two cooling systems. One of them is for the air motor itself. One of them is for the engine itself. It's something more complicated engine right here. But the interesting thing is there's a lot of experimentation with this engine. It had a vacuum pump, and then the PCV hoses there sit right on the valve cover. Actually, one time used climb, which is very interesting to see. And the turbo being in the front, usually every turbo car, the turbo is in the front. That's the place you want it to be. It's an easy spot to access. This turbo takes you no more than, I don't know, half an hour to take it out of the car. It's very simple to remove it. It has the integrated exhaust manifold in it, so it makes it even easier. It's actually, as I dig into this car further, I'm going to take an engine out of it and work with one routine, but not take an engine like this. It initially looks super complicated. You're kind of actually digging into it. Things are not as complicated as they seem. And that was the thing. The only thing was the alternator is a very bad spot. There is no other way to say it. It's not a good spot. It's all the way in the back, right near the axle. It's not a great spot. Having said that, I want to tell you a few things about this engine, particularly the 8AR, which is another model, but there are a couple of things that people always dislike about it. First thing is it uses premium fuel. Remember, they were experimenting with turbo engines at this point, so they require you to put premium fuel. That was the thing. That was as we now roll to 24 again, more turbo engines and Lexus, they are not using premium fuel at all. And as a new technology, and technology was not up there in those times with the 200T. The other thing is because it is turbo engine and because they were experimenting, they kind of went the typical Toyota Lexus super conservative ways, and the spark plugs are due for replacement at 40,000 miles. I think this is, other than the people who used to use platinum spark plugs in Toyotas and the 30,000 mile plugs, this is the shortest interval in modern engines for Toyota Lexus. The shortest one which follows is going to be 60,000 miles with the 2 RPS. Everything else, almost everything else is already 120,000 spark plugs. These are the two things that make owners really dislike these. Let me tell you one thing about this. Replacing the spark plugs on this engine is a 15-minute job. They're right there. Super, you saw me from the beginning of the video. Super DIY friendly, super simple. Now, the only thing service-wise that is extremely complicated and just very frustrating with this engine is bleeding the engine motor. I mean, they have 2-liter. I feel like this is experimental power trains.
For Uber Eats, Jack.
The engine one is a very complicated one because you have 2 liters. If you follow the instructions in the book, you follow the manual to the T, you will still have issues with this because you have to put a hole to deviate from the instructions updated properly, otherwise it will overheat. You'll have issues. You have to put a hole to the leader in the front, going to a container on the end of an RPM until you get the units flow. It's a little bit of a complicated, cumbersome process. Same thing with the turbo circuit coolant replacement. You have to run the pump using a standard, otherwise you can dead it. And that's the other thing. Now here's the truth about this job. After talking to the owner, they bought this car car with the understanding that it's as is, and they didn't anticipate they were going to have this many problems, this major of a problem, but they were going into it thinking maybe we will need to do some stuff, like replace brakes or tires, something like that. But when they just started burning oil, that's when the real problem started. They were scared. So they were adding
Thank you.
2 to 3
Everything?
that is just an extreme number of levels. Let's establish something with engine so you would know this. If your engine burns less than 1,000 miles, it burns a quarter or less, you are okay. This is not extreme rate of consumption. You're not going to start fouling plugs. You're not going to start severely diluting this oil. You're not going to start damaging your catalytic converter because that's another thing that is damaging oil consumption. But when we start seeing consumption rates over a quarter in 1,000 miles, we get 2 quarters and a half, 2 quarters, 3 quarters in 1,000 miles. And that's when this is too excessive. Anything over 2, 3 quarters, you're going to start fouling plugs. You're going to start getting misfires because the plugs are fouled, or you simply start losing compression. The only thing is running a compression test on an engine that is burning this much oil, and oil saving is all there could be false readings. That is if you're running the whole time. So kind of the basics of the compression test. If you have low compression, if you add oil and the compression goes back up and you have bad readings, that is kind of the old school way of doing compression. If you have so much oil that's all there, it's going to do the same thing. You're getting a false reading. So there is a thing with compression tests with these. Now, the AR series engine unfortunately suffers this. There are such tight tolerance. I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit more later in the video. We'll show you inside this engine, but there's such tight tolerance that if you have a little bit of seizing off the piston rings, you're going to start destroying the cylinder wall slowly. You're going to start wearing into it. And it doesn't take much for it to start running oil. So maintenance is key, and this is a turbo engine. Unlike that, you can inflict oil changes on a turbo engine, we will have severe issues. Now, let me walk you through what I am seeing as we go. I mean, 50% of this job is just a typical RAV4 engine. I have done a lot of RAV4 engines over my career. I tell you when I'm done with the job. It usually takes me an hour to have to pull a RAV4 for some AR engine conflicts. Super simple. It's very complicated. But super simple. These cars are basic. But this took a long time because there's a series of decisions. The first one being, do we pull the engine, the transmission in the car just from the top, or do we drop the powertrain complete and the transmission separate everything down? Now, the ones you can always want you to pull it on the bottom. I didn't RAV4, you pull it on the top, you pull on space. But this one, it was kind of a concern at some point. I had to stop filming it. I'm like, should we change direction and pull the whole powertrain? Because there isn't really much data because they're using months to 100 diesel programs. That's just the reality of things. So at some point I started looking at it, took apart one component. I thought we had enough space. And thankfully I was right about that. It was a good call. So you will see that as we come out here, not too far from here. But at this point, the shot's coming on. We're trying to film this. So luckily, as we roll closer, we're getting closer to the engine. Buying aircraft. Let us talk about the cost of this job. So labor is 21 hours. This is a pretty, I was surprised actually about labor time. We built it, but I did not deviate from as much because we haven't done this a lot. The used engine with a 12-month, 12,000 mile warranty with labor. Still, I think it's 14 part of labor. So this covers both of them from the company we use for used engines. I came up to just over $3,000. That is actually a pretty good price. If you guys be doing 24 for a used engine, it's a good price. An engine for example, a 4-runner, they call it the old school 1GR. We have a lot more than that. Yes, 3.6, but you're talking about triple that sometimes. So with this job, we needed some fluid, we needed some oil, we needed a great water filter. And the biggest thing was the used turbo. Even though the actual turbo I pulled out of this car in the end, I thought it's been replaced. At some point, I think it was the original one, that was so questionable, we were not going to do all this and take a turbo and experiment. I got the used turbo, that turbo was $771. Not too bad, considering the brand new one is $3,000. That would have completely taken this wheel out of proportion. So as it was, the engine come out here, the total bill for this was just over $7,100. It's a lot. You know, this is a much newer car that has a lot of value in it. So this is what made the owners decide, let's fix it. It doesn't have a lot of miles. Otherwise, it doesn't really need anything else. So pulling the engine was a very, very nervous moment for me because even though I think we had enough space, but still we're kind of deviating from the manual here and sake of not tearing this car completely apart. But in the end, I have good news for both of you. If you have a 300 with this thing AR engine and you're nervous about do we pull the whole powertrain or just pull the engine, you can definitely pull the engine out. It was actually not hard at all. It was hard to pull a million things around it, but once you got it out, it's actually not bad. Just like any other four-cylinder engine. Okay. But it does take some time. Again, I do this for a living, so when I say it's easy, it's not a DIY job per se, but for a professional technician, yes, it is doable. It's not hard. I think the labor in the end came out about fair for being in my shop, for my time invested in working on this, and fair for the customer, the amount that we're charging. So overall, I think things were going very well. We did not have any casualties. Everything was going extremely smoothly. Here's the engine coming out. I'm gonna dig into all of this. This is always a happy moment. A happy moment. And let's check it out live, and we'll go from there. The engine out of this NX200T. I don't know what kind of surprises we're going to find inside. I know the cylinder wall will be damaged, completely damaged, but the center made a lot of racket. Let us completely tear it down and let's see the extent of the damage of this one because this is a complete paperweight right now. Honestly, I wouldn't use a single part out of it. Maybe some levels clamps, but not complete paperweight because this engine ran low in oil, was severely neglected. I mean, I wouldn't trust a single part out of it. Just heads up. With that, a small disclaimer. The way I'm going to take this engine apart, you should never take an engine apart like this using it back, just not caring about anything. But to me, this is just scrap value of metal and some plastic, so it's going to make it nice. Let's tear it down and see how bad the damage is. So this was a very happy moment for me. I always wanted to go inside one of these things. They are, because they're always very interesting to me. They're just a really experimental, like very interesting outdoor design. It's kind of, and the VTI setup in this is very interesting. After there's new school, after there's old school, you have the solar at the top, and the well in front. It's very interesting setup. It's kind of a cross between old school and new school. Super tiny, big manifold. It doesn't really have ultra, but it does, but they're very small. And I guess the other thing unique, it has that big manifold in the back. There's a lot of experimentation with this engine, folks. And these are actually the correct detectors. They're right underneath that big manifold. You're impossible to access them in the car. That's the only downside to it. But very, very interesting engine. This Okay, folks, let's go these valves right now. Let's go check this out. You see the extent of the damage. It is very severe. We'll see what we can do this one. Incident. I'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's look at where we have something inside. Just look at this. We have absolutely everything. That's what we make it all. And same thing outside. it's not. That's the problem. Whatever, if you're not a Toyota owner, you own another car, and this is all manufacturers, God bless them, but they are doing this for marketing purposes, whatever it is, maybe. That's not our problem. Whatever the interval is, cut it in half. If you want to see that 2, 3, 400,000 miles, that have major stuff, you're going to have to do stuff in the car. The car just with nothing lasts that much. Whatever the interval is, cut it in half. And please be on top of the car maintenance. If you don't do it yourself, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But be unaware when does it happen. So we don't arrive at this point, and we get this. This is really sad. I wouldn't feel bad for this car because what happened to this car take us to the most important thing. So you got yourself into a situation. Although I don't see how somebody pays this much for this car. This car's not cheap. Cars are not cheap anymore. You pay this much for this car, and then you completely neglect it. Not go 12,000 miles. Go 46,000 miles. Oh, I forgot the oil change. But then you turn around and sell the car without disclosing what's actually going on. I don't know if it was the original owner. Maybe they traded it in the dealership sent it to auction, and somebody else bought it and sold it. And they didn't even know. Although I know how you could not know when you start the car. It just knocks and sounds horrible. And it smokes out of the exhaust. But anyways, when you sell a car with problems that you caused, or even you did not cause, and just say there's nothing wrong with it, that's so wrong. Because if you do that, it will come back to you. Not today. People will not find you. But there's going to be a day you'll be standing in front of the Lord and he'll remind you of it. Don't do that. It's not worth it, folks. You damage your car, take the loss and disclose it. Move on with your life. Life doesn't end with money and profit and loss. Your conscience is what starts and ends your life. That's the most important thing, folks. I really feel bad for the very nice couple that own this car. They just bought it. It has 66,000 miles. They thought they were doing the right thing. We researched. This is a good model. We bought it. We paid premium for it because it's a Lexus. Doesn't have a lot of miles. It's clean and all that. And here we are. This bill is not cheap, folks. These engines, they're very expensive because if we were going to build them a new engine, this would almost hold this entire car because just this block is 5,000-6,000. And the head and everything else. There's millions of little pieces of this engine that cost a small fortune. Don't do this to yourself. Number one. Number two. Don't do it to others. Take care of your car. Change that away. There's the most cheapest maintenance in a car. You will never see this. And the second thing, if you did see this, is close it. That's very important. Please let us shake hands on this. And let's not do this to others or ourselves. Sorry for ourselves. I'm for another video. I'll show you the detour that we had here. So with the head bolts, and I'm going to say this, probably every 20-25 engines I've done it, one of them has done this to me. See this? The head bolts. Toyota wants to use a 10mm triple square head bolt. Let me find that socket. I'll show you that socket. This is what that socket looks like. Sockets between thousands of engines. I think perhaps we'll replace it by the board, but all of them. This just goes in here. You gotta make sure it's serial going. It's the head bolt. Outside, it's 8mm, same thing. Like one NZ, those engines. Every 20-25 engines, we get one that strips the bolts, and then this has to happen. This is not fun. Now, when it happens in an engine, then we have to potentially service the head, put it back in use. It's a disaster because you have to drill through the bolt of the head until you release the tension, which is very dangerous because these are stretch bolts, and then slowly try to tap it to turn the bolt and get it going. The thing is, the cylinder head, I don't have to do that. This was bad for all the motors that maybe spend 3-4 hours to get this bolt without any damage. We just poke their bolt here and spun it. Very simple. Some people lie, but we got it. So this was payback for all these motors that maybe spend hours and hours. Folks, I hope I don't get to see this again in one of your cars, and I hope I don't get to hear another sad story of someone who's bought a car, put their family's financial health in jeopardy, bought a car, hope they got a deal. Here we are. I hope I don't get to see that again. It really breaks my heart, folks. Take care of your car. This bolt was wrong with them if you didn't, or if you just got unfortunate. Don't pass your misfortune to others. It's close. It's not worth it. And before I wrap up the video, use a small shot, use motor, use the roller, use the putting in this car. My opinion of used engines. I generally don't like uncertain cars. I'll never use engine in. This particular one, this engine does not have a lot of known issues. They burn oil. Take care of it. They haven't been around too long for them to develop this. The engine we got for this car, and they usually very fussy about used engines. We put one from 2021, and it's the same engine AAR. It had 14,000 miles. I was able to verify it. Usually I look at the service history, see if they maintained this car. This car was driven by, I imagine, an older couple. Because it had oil changes every 6 months. The miles sometimes very inconsistent and very low. And almost it's not due for an oil change, but they did it, I'm assuming, because they didn't drive it much. That's why. The turbo came from a different car. I believe it had 24,000 miles, something like that. Quote me on that if you're the owner of the car. But usually that's how I shop for used engines. You can get the VIN number, research it, see the service history, run kind of a full search on the VIN, see if I like it. Any car's been hit in the front, that's how used engines work. Any car's been hit in the front, no, because the engine can be damaged and we're going back and forth. I usually buy the best warranty I can on them, so we pass it down to the owners, that in case there's any issues. We'll give an example of issues. We put an engine on an 08 4Runner. Car had over 300,000 miles, owner loves it. Put the engine at 90,000 miles or something around there. Runs great, we're really happy with it. Car leaves a few months later, comes back for an EC problem. We're looking into it. I lift the car, give it one glance over. There's an external coolant leak from the head gasket. We're not going to let that fly again. So this same thing applies to mechanics. I could just turn the other eye, pretend it's not there until the warranty runs out, and get another job for the shop, right? No, because I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. That's not the right thing. I don't want other people to turn around and do that to me. So I told the owner, hey, the head gasket is leaking. We're not going to go and replace this motor that we hand-picked. Runs great, just has an external coolant leak. It was a giant fight with the warranty company from the company that sold us the engine to actually get us to go into this motor and just replace head gaskets. They just want to send us another engine. They don't care. It's cheaper for them that way. A lot of fighting, but we got it. That's the problem with used engines, folks, is you gotta have a shop that is willing to fight your fights with these companies, and you supply your own engine. Bring it to me is a very dangerous proposition because I'm gonna put it in the car, and if it doesn't start, I'll tell you, you brought the engine. All I can do is pull spark plugs, sometimes run a compression test, although it's not very accurate, look inside of a horoscope, research some service history, if you have the number on it, there's a tag still there, that's all I can do. Until you put it in the car, run it, when you drive for a while, you won't know everything about it. So that's the problem with supplying engines to shops. So folks, this car is done. We're happy with this job. I hope they don't have any issues in the future. If they do, they have a warranty on the engine, so take care of them there. Folks, I hope this video was helpful for a moment. I hope there's something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Get us up on the video. Until the next video, folks. Thank you all. Let's see you keep you. You guys are set. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the Car Channel. In today's video, I want to share with you how we maintain your Toyota Lexus in 2024, so we can have the best results going forward. These are some recommendations that will sometimes not follow the manual that comes with the car maintenance guide. Do you go with the normal? Do you go with the severe? But these are recommendations that come from my experience versus the Toyota Diagnostic Technician for a long time with the Toyota dealership, and then I own my own shop versus Toyota Lexus. This is the maintenance guide that if you follow, you will not have issues caused by maintenance neglect for your Toyota Lexus. Without further ado, let's get into the first one. The first and most important maintenance is for your engine. Let's start with the most basic and most important maintenance item for any car, oil changes. We're not going to get too heavy into the debate, but we will make a recommendation here. If you have a non-turbo car or a hybrid, 5,000 miles or 6 months. Not a day more, not a day less, not a mile more, not a mile less, not going to IU this synthetic oil that goes millions and miles. Keep it simple. If you don't drive 5,000 miles 6 months, change oil twice a year, you're never going to have issues from oil. 5,000 miles, not more. Now, we'll say one thing. If you do them earlier, you're not hurting anything. Don't do it later than 5,000 miles. And then now we have turbo engines. Toyota Lexus cars. With the turbo engines, I will make another recommendation different actually. 3,000 to 4,000 miles, folks. If you want to see very high miles out of these cars with reliability. 3,000 to 4,000 miles, 3 to 4 months. These turbo engines, they can be made to last long, but you got to be in proper maintenance. That's the number one thing with these engines. And with that, let's move into spark plugs, because things have changed dramatically lately over the last few years. Most Toyotas, 120,000 miles, 10 years on the spark plugs, not an issue at all. However, we have some exceptions now. Even the 3.5 liter V6, it's 2GR FKS on the Lexus and Toyota side, specifically that engine, now the 2GR spark plug actually 60,000 miles. We're starting to see some spark plugs over 60,000 miles with some severe wear. Let's put it this way. That's just how these engines are. It's the requirement for them. And then the turbo engines, you have the NX200T, the Tundra, the Sequoia, all the engines with the V35A and the T24A that you'll find in many, many models. These are 40,000 mile plugs, and it is vital that you actually replace them with the correct interval. Yeah, sure, I have 80,000 miles on my car, I never replace the plugs, everyone's fine. Does it? That's the biggest question, folks. These are modern cars. The computers can really compensate for a lot of neglect, but it doesn't mean it's a good idea, so be careful with those. Moving on from that to coolant. Engine coolant. The most important thing you understand about coolant is the intervals in the maintenance guide, they're all replaced. It's cool. Take that one. But I'll keep it simple. Replace your liquid coolant or super long life coolant. This is anything over 2003, 2004, every 50,000 miles or 5 years. That's a very long interval. You don't need to see the need for 100, 150,000 miles. 50,000 miles, you're not going to have issues with the coolant. If you have red coolant, which is anything older than 2003, that one is 30,000 miles or 3 years. Keep it very simple. Replace the coolant, and life is wonderful. Now, moving on from coolant to air filters. Folks, there is no interval for air filters. Although newer cars will say 30,000 miles. If it's not 30 at 30,000 miles, don't replace it. That's as simple as that. If it's 30 at 5,000 miles, replace it. It's as simple as that. This is the as-needed maintenance for the engine. Equally to that is the drive belt. There is no interval for replacement for drive belt. Some cars will go 600,000 miles without a drive belt replacement. Some will get it at 50,000. If you got it inspected, does it have cracks? Is it feathering? We have concerns with this and making noise. Usually noise is more than often caused by a tensioner that is not putting enough tension on it. But that one is as needed. And the last one with the engine is very important. A lot of folks ask about PCV valve, positive crankcase ventilation valve. It is not a. This is kind of the gray area of maintenance. If you get over 100,000 miles, just over like we got to 120 for example, and the original PCV valve is still there, it's not a bad idea to replace it. Now on the turbo cars or on the 2GR KS where the interval 60-40, I think it has a little bit of dirty side to do with between 40 and 60,000. You can stretch those to the following replacement of spark plugs. So you change the spark plugs to 60 with the 2GR KS, and 120 change the plugs and PCV valve. Turbo engines, 40,000 change the plugs, 80,000 change the plugs and the PCV. That's the best way I'm going to put it, but just know that is not always a perfect science on the interval there. There's just a recommendation of time and interval. Let's get into the transmission, because this is a very important one. Sealed transmission, life fluid, time fluid, nothing's like that, folks. Let's keep it simple. If you own a Toyota or Lexus with no dipstick, that is a sealed transmission. It's actually not sealed, it's not a dipstick. Change the fluid. Your fluid type at that point is WS fluid. Change that fluid every 6 years or 60,000 miles, regardless of what anybody says. Don't flush it. Drain and fill. Life is good. You can do a flush, but just know flushes are a little bit more intrusive. If it's a higher mile transmission, you might not want to do that. That's not the best idea. Now, if you have an older Toyota that uses P4 fluid or anything older than that, 30,000 miles or 3 years, whichever comes first, change the fluid, and we're good. Now, we're going to get a little bit to the hybrid side here. We're going to have a dedicated section to the rest of the maintenance, but hybrid transmissions, the replacement window is 60,000 to 90,000. If we see a fluid replacement between that window, we are good. 6 to 9 years. Perfect. We have no issues. Now, one thing I must know, in the very newer cars, there is a new type of transmission fluid for the hybrid. It's called transmission fluid E-Transexo TE. If you see that, or you have that fluid, it's distinguishable with its clear color. It's not red. That's replaced every 60,000 or 6 years. It's not expensive fluid. Really good news. But replace that fluid every 60,000, 6 years without that replacement window, because that fluid is very thin, and you might want to get it refreshed here. The last thing is CVT transmissions that use TC CVT fluid or FE CVT fluid. Those are exactly the same as WS interval-wise. 60,000 miles or 6 years, and you won't have issues with these transmission. And lastly, the transmission filter. Folks, you do not have to replace the transmission filter in your Toyota Lexus as long as we are following a good interval. Depending which fluid you use in an interval, we don't have to replace the filter. However, if you felt like you neglected the maintenance, we are doing the first replacement at 80,000, 90,000. It's not a terrible idea, but it's still not required. The only time you really want to get in there and replace a filter, if you remove the pan for something else, leaves from regular service. What about four-wheel drive and manual transmission here? Let's talk about those. With your front rear differential and your transfer case, replace the first time when the car is new. At 30,000 miles, there's not really a year interval, 30,000 miles. The year interval doesn't always apply. But the subsequent replacement, as long as we're not towing, as long as we're not heavy off-roading, 50,000 miles is a good interval. Now, as far as manual transmission, first you want to know that make sure you're using the correct fluid. Some of the newer manual transmission are using low viscosity fluid. Make sure you're using the correct fluid for your application. But same thing with the manual transmission. First replacement, 30,000. If you're not doing any towing, heavy off-road, really heavy use, just putting driver, normal driving, you can go 50,000 afterwards. But if you are doing towing or heavy off-road, keep it at 30,000. That's not a bad idea on those. Let's talk about a few other fluids that are important. First one is brake fluid. Some Lexus models, and they name performance models or good models with big brakes. F-Sport usually your interval will be 20, 30,000, 30,000 is a decent interval. However, for everything else that's not high performance brakes, you need a moisture test. If there is no interval, I'll leave a link in the description for a really good strength test that is probably more accurate than the digital one that you gotta test it. It doesn't have high moisture content. You're not doing anything but just wasting your money. So brake fluid needs to be tested. Car circuit a lot more often. So you have to establish a pattern for this filter. It is vital to the life of the battery. And lastly, on the all-wheel drive models of hybrids, you will have a rear e-transaxle or kind of an MGR hybrid unit in the back, whatever you want to call it. Most of them will use WS fluid, so 60 to 90,000 mile, somewhere in that window is a good idea. But the newest ones will start using TE fluid. That you need to replace it at 60,000 miles or 6 years, and you wouldn't have issues with a rear hybrid e-transaxle unit. Let's talk about some maintenance considerations, things that I want you to take as food for thought. Let's put it this way. First one is, ideally, even if you're a DIYer, you'd want to have an annual inspection, folks. And when I mean by annual inspection, by a professional, or if you are a DIYer, you need to invest in properly lifting the car and really spending time. I cannot tell you how many things you will miss by putting a car on the jack stands, and being crawled underneath it, then we put it on the lift all the way up. So many things you're not able to see unless you're standing and spending your time underneath the car. That is very important. The second thing is, if you're a DIYer, there's so many things I see DIYers miss all the time, vital important things. You need to, if you're a DIYer, you need to always update your information. And if you're not sure, get it inspected by a professional once a year, not the end of the road. If they tell you that here's a laundry list of things that it needs, don't say yes, don't think about it, research, but at least get it inspected, because this is important. This is how things get missed, and then they snowball into big issues. So that is an important thing. Suspension, part of that very important inspection. Although suspension usually lasts a very long time, any car that has around 1,000 miles, you're going to start watching for things. We're having a leaky strut that we're going to need to start saving up to replace, so we wouldn't have to get caught in a bad time where it's starting to make noise or need replacement, and then we're putting cheapo aftermarket stuff. If we knew ahead of time that we had this coming up, we could have saved up for it and put those beautiful original parts. Speaking of parts and original fluids, filters, everything, please use original parts. You buy a Toyota because it's reliable. The only thing that makes it reliable is its fluids and parts. Keep things original, especially oil. If you don't have a preferred brand of oil that you have used and have good experience with, use Toyota oil, bottled oil. It's not the best oil on the planet for other cars, but for Toyotas, it's very good. That's the whole point. Same thing with filters. I don't understand the conversation of filters. Toyota filters, originals, are some of the cheapest filters you can buy among other manufacturers. There is no pride in going with a certain brand. Keep your Toyota reliable, buy the original parts, especially when they are actually the best deal when it comes to filters at least. Now, if you have a preferred brand that you've used for years, never had issues with, go for it. You have experience. But others who are experimenting, don't experiment with oil and oil filters. If you're not sure, get the original stuff and let's move on with our life. I'm just going to keep it as simple as that. However, I will say one thing. Don't go modifying the original design to make things convenient for you, DIYers out there. I have to say that. Don't go changing the canister filter into an easy one that has a spin on to make service easier for you. And then this is a plastic housing, I'm going to put a metal one, you go buy an aftermarket. Try to avoid modifying the maintenance systems. Instead, use proper service procedures so we're not over-tightening stuff, we're not breaking stuff. That's just a general recommendation for our beautiful DIY community. Don't modify things, especially when it comes to that oil filter, folks. I've seen so many issues from oil filters. Just don't modify things. Oldies but goodies. If you all know Toyota, there are certain things that you need to know about. Timing belts, they're a thing of the past now, but we still have a lot of these cars on the road. And here's a general recommendation for that. Anything after 2,000, this is a general number, not exact, but anything over 2,000, intervals have increased to 90,000 miles or 9 years. That is your interval for the timing belt. Anything before 2,000, 60,000 or 6 years is the general interval for those. Every time you do a timing belt, always do a water pump, always do all the idlers, the tensioner, do cam and crank seal. It's a model that doesn't require removing the BBTI gear. For example, the BBTI 2UZ or 3UZ, these you have to remove the cam to replace the cam seal. But the others, do the cam and crank seals. They're right there. It would be a bad idea. Now, other than that, cars that have spark plug wires, if the wires are over 10 years old and the original wires will have a date on them, if they're over 10 years old, might not be a bad idea to replace them. I hope at this point, the last car I remember is definitely over 10 years old that has spark plug wires, so I hope we are in our second replacement. Let's put it this way. And the other thing is, if we're really the older ones that have distributors and taps and rollers and all this stuff, usually every spark plug wire replacement, replace the rotor cap. Not necessarily every single time you do spark plugs. This Toyota stuff lasts a really long time. You're not going to change all the wires and plugs and rotor and cap every 30,000 miles just because the plugs need to be replaced. So those reserves them to the 10-year mark. So you buy time more than miles. The last thing I will tell you, and this is something that's come up as a question, valve clearance that I just don't have hydraulic lifters. This is not a maintenance item, folks, for Toyotas at least. This is a repair item. If we don't have ticking noises when the car's cold and goes away, we don't have a reason to believe that the valve clearance is out. We cannot do anything with it. Now, if you're taking the cylinder head out for work, whatever the case may be, check it. If it needs adjustment